Alright, so a little disclaimer here. This video is going to be quite gruesome, actually. There is a part where the feeder mouse explodes. So if you're not really into blood and carnage, this isn't going to be a typical snake feeding video where the snake just lunges and swallows it whole. I accidentally let this mouth thaw a little bit too long and figured I would show this feeding video so that people can get an idea of what happens when you leave your mouse out to thaw a little too long. This is October. She is a small corn snake. She's a caramel blood red, if you remember. She was the snake that came to us with an eating problem. There are times where she will strike a dangling mouse. This happened to be one of those times. It does take a bit to entice her, and luckily there was no regurgitation this time. And I figured that I would do a voiceover during this video just to explain about this snake's progress. So she'll actually be striking very shortly, and you will see that her body pushes up against the mouse in the log, and it will explode right about now. So the funny thing about this snake is sometimes she will strike, she'll get it, and then she'll let it go. There are occasions where she will just not eat the mouse, and I have to antagonize her until she does. Or, for instance, in this video, you do get to see that she pokes and prods at the body. So once I lift the camera to adjust it, you will see here she is coiled. There is quite a mess, as you can tell. I will have to do some cleaning in her cage, because typically there's not blood everywhere, but this time she had quite the time, I would say. So the problem with October was, when we first took her home, she didn't eat for a good 4 weeks, which is normal. When you're first taking a snake home. However, after that time, we could not get her to ingest anything. And it got to the point where I had to just feed her a pinky head. What we had to do was, unfortunately, sever it and then give it to her as that. As every time she got to the pinky's legs, she refused to swallow it. It did not matter how small of a pinky we got, she just would not force herself to stretch. So here she is now, trying to figure out a good spot to devour that mouse. But of course, she's still learning, unfortunately. So she's trying to figure out which end she wants to eat it from. Of course, this isn't the best place to start from. So she's going to keep poking and prodding until she finds an appropriate place to start her feeding. Luckily, she didn't get a feeding, I think it was, last week due to her being in shed. So she's pretty voracious this feeding and pretty hungry. And it does take her quite a bit. It usually does, depending on the snake. And since she has trouble eating, she probably won't get that down for quite a bit. As you can tell, it's quite the long video. So once we got her that pinky head when she was younger, and she finally ate that, her appetite got back up, and she started to kind of eat. And now we're kind of getting on a schedule, but at the same time, she's a bit picky, so it's quite the struggle, but she's making progress. And, I mean, that's all we can hope for. The fact that she's getting more comfortable with eating with people around is also nice. We've grown to have a gentle bond. She doesn't bite me anymore. She doesn't strike at me. I can go in and she'll know the difference now between food and hand, whereas before she did not. But that's also because I started a different kind of feeding technique that we actually use with Pumpkin. What we like to do is give them an indication that they're getting fed and that there is a meal coming into their tank, rather than just sticking our hand in and feeding them that day. While they're smart enough to understand when mealtime is, it's always good to kind of condition your animals to understand some things, especially when it's a snake. Because if a snake's hungry, you can't get mad at them for striking, because they don't know. They don't have the greatest eyesight. So with her, what we like to do with her and the bigger snake is pull the upper lid of the vivarium, and we will dangle the mouse with a halfway open tank. This way, if they see that their tank is only open part of the way, they know that a meal's coming. But if the lid is removed completely, then they are very aware at the fact that there is no mouse coming in and that it's probably just going to be your hand. Another thing I like to do is let her sniff my hand with her tongue before I actually go down and grab her or anything of the sort, though October has gotten to the point where she fully understands. But it's a cautionary measure, even though she's a little snake. Their bites don't hurt too much, even though she draws blood. So as you can see, she did pull it into the log. They do like a little bit of privacy when they're eating. Though she's not really aware that I'm continuously filming, I think. And yeah, this is pretty much how it works. If you cannot get your snake to eat, what I suggest is if they don't strike at the mouse and you've already brained it, which is, for those of you who do not know what braining is, it is when you take a pin or something sharp and you go and you poke or make an incision in the food's head. I'm sorry, this is the best way I can say it without it being too graphic. And it sucks, but it's the circle of life, and the snakes need to eat. So, for anybody who wants to go on about animal cruelty and such, just keep in mind that this is the snake's natural diet, and I wouldn't prefer to feed them anything else, actually. This is the best meal for her. I wouldn't want to subject my snake to an unhealthy diet simply because I feel bad for what she's eating. So you can brain it, and if they still don't take it, you can leave it in a section of their tank, and they might just swallow it the way October did. However, I like to make sure my snake got its meal, otherwise they will... Well, October specifically will let it just rot. She won't actually go to eat it. That is how she was eating at the pet store. They weren't letting her strike or anything, and I'm starting to think that that was what messed up her eating. So, yeah, if you ever get a small snake, what I would recommend is to think about how you're going to feed carefully. Wash your hands after touching the dead mice or live mouse, whatever you decide. We prefer frozen as it's more safer, and we give them the occasional live mouse as a treat. But this is the basics of having a snake feed. It's not always going to be as easy as dangling a carcass in your mouse's tank. They're not always going to go for that meal. Depending on your snake. Some snakes are gluttons, and they will always eat, even if they are in shed. For instance, Pumpkin here at Pandora's Jar, she will eat every single time. October will not eat if she is in shed. So if you have a picky snake, you can try all sorts of things. For instance, the braining. I've actually had October for a few months now, so that just gives you an idea of how long you might have to work with an animal. So keep in mind as well that she wasn't a huge rescue either. She was a quick rescue. The only problems she seemed to have was her cranky attitude and her lack of wanting to eat. There was actually a point in time where we weren't sure if she was going to want to even survive. We were concerned she was going to starve herself. So this is an amazing feat to see. Um, I mean, obviously the carnage is something else, but I am very, very happy and we are impressed to see her actually swallowing her meal and taking it. So, I might do a video on picky corn snakes and how to get them to eat because, well, we have one right here. And as you can see, she had quite the meal. So, I would consider this a successful feeding. And I'm very glad that we decided to pull out the camera and get her on tape. Because she's an amazing snake, actually, despite all of her issues. And I cannot wait to continue working with her and making her a wonderful, wonderful part of Pandora's Jar. I hope you liked this video. Please leave a like, a comment, and if you could share it with your friends, that would be really rad. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I would love to answer anything or have any ideas on what kind of video you would like to see next, what kind of animals, anything. But I hope you have a good day, and we'll see you again.